So I was just thinking about it. Why the hell should I put it on slow motion and go through all the unit details in game when I can just do it in the pre-game battle replay UI here? And then you can actually see what the reinforcing armies are and copy the builds. So yeah, I'm going to do that for these casts instead. Hello everybody, it's your boy T bringing you another cast in Total Warhammer 3. And today we're going to be looking at the Grand Cathay versus the Ogres. We're going to talk about some of the overpowered units that the Ogres have. You're going to see a lot of them in this game straight off the bat. And we got these Gorges here that are going to stalk and vanguard deploy right in front of my face, and then you've got the Iron Blasters which hide at the back and do stupid amounts of damage to me at range. Look at that, 1.5k. Armor piercing, armor sundering shots from these bad boys. It's really quite terrifying. But you'll be happy to know that Grand Cathay actually is one of the factions that is the best at dealing with Iron Blasters. So hey, at least they've got some niches, right? And the way that you're going to deal with the Iron Blasters is going to be with the Grand Cannons of Grand Cathay. Now you obviously get 4 models in this squad, each of them doing 222 armor piercing damage from stupidly long range, actually longer range than the Iron Blasters themselves, and that allows you to easily snipe out the Iron Blasters. But as if that wasn't bad enough for the Iron Blasters, I'm bringing a dragon-blooded Shugengan Lord of Yin. So the Yin Shugengan is really nice because it gets Missile Mirror. So it's an interesting spell, to be honest, because technically at the highest levels of play this is going to be of questionable value, but certainly for ranking up in the ladder, if you're getting annoyed by players who are abusing the fact that the Ogre Iron Blasters are quite blatantly overpowered at the moment, this is a really good option. So you cast this on a single Iron Blaster, and if you overcast it, lasts for about 42 seconds. For that period then, every time they shoot, 100% of the damage is going to be directly redirected into the shooting unit. So this is actually really good for everything, but for Iron Blasters in particular, because they do such huge amounts of damage, for all of that to go back into the Iron Blasters, it does insane damage. Basically takes off like a third of their HP every time they shoot with this active. It's very strong. You overcast this, if the enemy doesn't react, he's going to get his own Iron Blaster killed. Now, that said, if the enemy player is wise, this is the first thing in this matchup that you should look for. If you're an Ogre player and you've brought Iron Blasters and you see that Grand Cathay has got a Shugengan Lord, check whether it's Yin or Yang. If it's Yin, then it might have Missile Mirror. Check whether it's got Missile Mirror. If you see the Shugengan flying over or riding over to your Iron Blaster and it casts a spell, look at your goddamn Iron Blaster. If it's got Missile Mirror on it, do not shoot. Turn off fire at will, or move your Iron Blaster so it doesn't shoot, because if it shoots, it will kill itself. It's pretty brutal. It dies real fast, and you'll see in this game how fast it can die. So that's something to consider, but just remember, even if they react to it, 42 seconds of an Iron Blaster not firing gives you ample time to get into positions where either you can compromise it in melee with cavalry, where you can use line of sight to dodge its fire, or if it's a big open map, you can just blow it up with your cannons. So even in those high level games where the enemy is actually going to be aware of this tactic, it can still be effective. Now the Shugengan Dragon Lord isn't just useful for that, but it's also useful for Ancestral Warrior summons. So summons a Halberd unit wherever you want it, only 2 times per game, but obviously that's great against Ogres because Ogres have a bunch of large units, right? So Halberds are always nice, and you can use those Halberds to protect your cannons as well. It's like I've brought Blossom Wind here, which actually I think is a little bit questionable. You probably don't want this many spells on one caster. You're going to run out of Winds of Magic, but I guess. Talons of the Night is good against Noblar spam. It's AoE Vortex spell. Just does really good stationary AoE damage. And then Storm of Shadows is really nice. It's actually the strongest speed debuff in the game. And for a low amount of Winds of Magic, I actually think it's very useful in multiplayer. Not very useful in single player, but very useful in multiplayer. Obviously, the Ogres have a lot of really fast units. They're surprisingly quick for the big chunguses that they are. I mean, check this out, 54 speed on the Ogre Iron Balls, and even 54 on the Iron Guts. That's insane. This is like cavalry speed. Jade Lancers are only 66, for Christ's sake. So, slowing them down, stopping them from getting onto your flanks is very effective. The general thesis of how Cathay, or really anyone, beats Ogres is to spam lots of cheap anti-large. For this reason, Peasant Long Spearmen are very good, and then you have Jade Warriors to give a little bit more mass. Then you have your own cavalry to provide extra mass blocking, and then you shoot them to pieces with ranged units. Peasant Archers, Crossbowmen. Ogres generally do not have a lot of armour. Obviously the Iron Guts are more elite with their 90 armour, but Saber-Tusk packs, only 30 armour. Ogre Bulls, 40 armour. Gorges, 15 armour. So, Man-Eaters, 40 armour. Noblars, 15 armour. You've seen a pattern here. There's a lack of armour. Obviously the big monsters have armour and so do the Tyrants, but they're less of a problem because you shoot those fuckers with cannons, right? But the masses of enemies you fight, you kill them with mass archers. Anyhow, let's get into the game then and see how it plays out.
Command the 8 winds themselves. We cannot possibly lose.
So here we go. Right off the bat, we're going to see the Gorges have Vanguard deployed and they're right in my face. As you can see here, they're hidden at the moment because they have Stalk, so I can't actually see them in game. So all of a sudden I've got this massive infantry force pushing through, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, there's fucking Gorges here. Now, I mean, look, I'll just let you guys watch what happens. But basically, Gorges are overpowered as fuck. They're just absurdly cost effective for what they do. Now, it's obviously not great to have Jade Warriors at the front. You want your anti-large, so actually that was a bit of a mistake on my end. Probably should have the peasant spearmen swapped with the Jade Warriors here, but let's just watch how much damage these guys do. So right now they're fighting Jade Warriors and Jade Warriors with halberds, and remember that these guys are buffed with Yin and the harmony bonuses from Yin and Yang, giving them extra leadership and melee defense. Just look how much damage they're doing. And this is just a straightforward, basic frontal charge against units that are meant to counter them. Halberds. These ones are being weakened by the fact that I've actually used one of my Winds of Magic summons to get the Ancestral Warriors behind them. It's just crazy. Look at all the damage that I'm taking. Now, Saber-Tusk packs do actually charge in from the side as well. Meanwhile, there's a couple of Saber-Tusk packs going over in this direction. Now, what I do is I use the Cloak of Jet, which is another Yin spell. It turns these peasant spearmen invisible with Stalk. So they just thought there was nothing here. They thought this was easy pickings in my cannons, and they charged straight into spearmen. And then, unfortunately for Saber-Tusks, they rampage. So they actually rampage on top of my spearmen. So he can't even micro them, pull them away, and get them around. This effectively routes both the Saber-Tusk packs with just 2 units of Peasant Spearmen, which is so cost effective, and I didn't even lose any models. Really nice use of that ability there. I actually think it's really good. Now, whether or not having both the cannons up here on the high ground is effective, I mean, that is definitely something to debate. It's very early in the life cycle of the game and I'm no expert, so that might not be that great. But at least having one cannon up here, it gives you some nice line of sight. You can fire down here and cover this. Basically, you can cover both points, which is, you know, that gives you a lot of extra value. So that's what I'm going for here. Now, the enemy does actually have some Iron Blasters, but they're put up over on this end here. And if can we see? Yeah, we can see the range of the Iron Blasters here. I'm strategically taking the engagement against the Saber-Tusks and the Gorges as far back enough that the Iron Blasters can't contribute. Now, the only tricky thing is that if my cannons are up here on this wall, they can't hit the Iron Blasters. And I'm aware of that, and I have this massive blob of infantry here that I want to push onto the central VP, so I'm taking my cannons down now that the main threats that are going to flank around and hit them are dealt with, and the cannons are going to counterfire the Iron Blaster in tandem with the missile mirror ability of the Shugengan of Yin. The enemy summons some Noblars, which are going to capture this western VP, And I think they have some Noblars in the Eastern VP as well, which is not a bad idea. Now I have some Jade Lancers. Given that Jade Lancers have 100 armor, the Noblars can't really do any damage to them. I mean, you can look at the damage here. They're doing like 4 damage per hit. It's pretty sad, really. So even though Jade Lancers aren't the best in sustained melee, with only 26 melee attack, 28 melee defense, and the fact they're winded, they're just wiping the floor with Noblars, as you'd expect. So it's a nice little engagement for me, but unfortunately infantry do have higher capping power, so they are going to get the cap there. This is like a weird graphical effect. What's that all about? Anyway, Iron Blasters are doing their thing. I think at this point the cannons are in position to counterfire, maybe? Not sure. Yeah, they are. So he's pulling them back so they don't just get shot at while they can't retaliate. Sabertusk's going to engage these Jade Warriors and the Peasant Long Spearmen, but there is a Stonehorn running up round the side. Big beast for the Ogres. This thing will obviously send Cathay and infantry absolutely flying. So I try and get my halberds and my spearmen in position to block it, but you know, there's only so much that non-humans can do to block this motherfucker before he gets onto my cannons and my archers, and I summon a Terracotta Sentinel to try and deal with this. Terracotta Sentinel having 600 armor piercing damage. It actually will do a little bit more of a punch to this Stonehorn than my poor halberds and spearmen can ever hope to do. But the problem is that this thing's still got a damn lot of mass and it can move very fast, so he can just pull it through all my halberds, get onto these cannons and try and compromise them. I'm summoning some more Jade Lancers. They're going to go down to the east side of the map and try and contest this quite a bit. Iron Guts were summoned. These guys are the elite melee infantry for the Ogres. They're essentially like Empire Greatswords, but for the Ogres. They've got armor piercing, two-handed weapons. So they actually will tear through my Jade Lancers quite badly. I really don't want to engage them 1v1. I need some peasants to saturate my forces, make them attack the peasants while the Jade Lancers get around the back. Now, unfortunately for the Ogre player, this Stonehorn is really overextended at this point. I've got both of my peasant archers shooting at it. Not that they're going to do amazing damage, they don't have very good armor piercing, but the Stonehorn is a big target, so all the arrows will hit, and every bit adds in, right? We've got halberds tickling away at them, and the Terracotta Sentinel the whole time has been focusing him down. He does manage to get onto one of my cannons, and there is a bug at the moment where the well, I don't even know if it's a bug, but these cows from the Grand Cathay cannons, they can be attacked themselves because they have like a melee attack animation, which is something that previous cannons in other Total War iterations didn't have. And the problem is that it means that things like the Stonehorn will attack the cows, and when they destroy them, that means that's permanently gone, and you can't remount the cannons, so to speak. What's the word for that? Remount the cannons? I feel like I'm blanking on the word. Isn't that really obvious? Reman. They can't reman the cannons. Jesus. Fucking hell, Torpid. Anyway, the Stonehorn's compromised, but there's a lot of forces coming this way. More of the dreaded Gorges are coming along. I do have some halberds here, but you've seen what these guys did before. Now, if this Ogre player was better, he would send him around, not just charge me head on, but who needs to be good when you're playing Ogres and you can spam Gorges? So they're going to rip these guys up pretty hard. They do take a good amount of damage, actually, from the halberds. It's nice to saturate them with the Jade Warriors with swords, so the Gorges can't just focus on the halberds. They're wasting a lot of their damage on those Jade Warriors there. Now, there is quite a bit of a scrap going on there. Double Jade Lancers takes out the Noblars, thank God. The Iron Guts are now in battle with the Peasant Long Spearmen, which is exactly what I want. Them wasting their high damage armor piercing attacks on peasants. That's great. And then I hit them in the back with Jade Lancers. Fantastic. But I do see that some more man-eaters are coming in, flanking my Jade Lancers, who are getting kind of fucked up by pathing here, because this is quite a narrow pass, a good place for them to engage with me. There's even some Gorges here. I don't know if I've actually noticed them or not at this point. So I think the plan will be to summon, yes, my other Ancestral Warrior Halberd squad, get them to tie up the Ogres in melee, waste their attacks on them, and then I get the Lancers out and try and flank around, but I'm not actually going to have time to do that, unfortunately, because the Gorges have appeared out of nowhere and are tying me up in melee. I didn't even get a chance to show off the missile mirror, but rest assured, it has wrecked this Iron Blaster. I think it might happen maybe next time with the Iron Blaster, not sure. Or it might just get shot by the cannons. I'll have to try and bear that in mind. Either way, you guys can try it out yourself and see how effective that missile mirror is against the Iron Blasters. It's really good, and really it's very effective against any ranged unit, even against archers, because normally a lot of the DPS of archers, it disappears because the arrows themselves will just miss. But when you use missile mirror, every arrow they shoot is guaranteed to hit them, so you get even more damage than you normally would with ranged units. At this point, the man-eaters are kind of out of position. I've rotated my peasant archers around, and man-eaters only with their 40 armor. They're actually taking a damn lot of damage from these arrows going into them. At this point, the opponent is also just... he's just outnumbered. You know, we managed to hold on to that point early on, but I've now took it. The Gorges are finally falling. The Terracotta Sentinel coming over here is just going to be a little bit too much. Terracotta Sentinel is a good option against the Gorges, just because he will counter their regeneration by just killing them outright with his huge amount of weapon damage. Just like the Gorges, he is also unbreakable as well. Sending over some Peasant Horsemen just to saturate, get some more capping power going on. I do not want him to cap this victory point, especially because he had an early lead against me. More Gorges coming in, of course. What else would the Ogre player opt for? These Iron Guts are actually AFKing, and these guys do not have any shield of any sort, so they are an easy target for my Peasant Archers to try and force off. Now I'm moving the Shugengan of Yin over. Let's see if I use the Missile Mirror on the Iron Blaster. You can see the damage here that these Elite Ogres are taking from the Peasant Archers. Peasant Archers are so cost effective. Doesn't look like I am doing it. I think I'm trying to figure out whether or not he is actually shooting at me, and he is. The Iron Blaster is shooting at my Terracotta Sentinel and doing some really good damage. So here we go. We've got the Missile Mirror on the Iron Blaster. You can see how much damage it's doing over here. Boom! Decent damage there, but now it's got the Missile Mirror, so check out this. Check this out. Watch the health. Whenever he finally reloads and shoots. If he ever reloads and shoots. Boom. Boom! Fucking hell. 1,900 HP gone instantly. Look at that. Isn't that insane? And look how long this thing lasts for. 42 seconds. And that just makes it rout. It's like, whoa. God, we don't like being hit by that. So yeah, there you go. I mean, what's the HP of this thing? 6,120. Sorry, 6,112. And that just did 1,900. I'm actually having a brain fart. Did I just say 1,900? I think I did, didn't I? So yeah, basically, if it shoots 3 times while under Missile Mirror, it'll have basically no health left. It won't die, but it'll probably just rout. Yeah, so there you go. That's something to bear in mind. That Missile Mirror, very good counter to the Iron Blasters. Especially because you can use it from quite long range, and when the Shugengan is on the Longmar, it's actually kind of hard to hit with the artillery. So a couple more Iron Guts now moving in. The Iron Guts are going to do pretty well against the Terracotta Sentinel, especially when it's very tired. The armor piercing and high weapon damage that they have is pretty powerful. So let's see, they get a nice surround there, but the Terracotta Sentinel at this point is just tanking for me. Yeah, you can see, they do some really good damage. Look how fast they're chipping it down, holy shit. They're not bad at all, are they? Jeez. Got to get the Jade Warriors with halberds in. These ones were kind of blocking. I was trying to get a flank with my Peasant Horsemen, but they're kind of blocking me. Yeah, wow, this is not a good trade for the Terracotta Sentinel. He does not want to be fighting Iron Guts 1v1, so that's something to bear in mind. From both sides, Iron Guts are a really nice counter to the Terracotta Sentinel. But yeah, trying to flank with the Shugengan. I don't really know what's happening to her. She's kind of derping out here. What the fuck? Flying back up and away, but the problem is, at this point I'm just so far ahead in VPs. This mass of troops in the centre, the halberds and the lots of different ranged units. You've got Jade Warrior Crossbowmen, you've got the Peasant Archers, with the cannons supporting in the back. There's just no way for the Ogres to approach down here. Similar story on the left hand side. Yeah, more Peasant Archers have come down this end, and I was just rotating the other range units across to this side to protect both of the VPs. I always thought before the game launched that Ogres would be countered by cheap anti-large infantry spam as well as cheap ranged spam because of the lack of armor that they have. Now they do have a lot of tools to deal with it. I think the Stonehorn is actually kind of legitimate at that, and obviously Iron Blasters are pretty amazing themselves, so you've just got to be really careful of that Missile Mirror. And you need to compromise the Cathay and back line. You need to get at the cannons, you need to get at the ranged troops, and that's what Saber Tusks are good for. And Gorges, obviously, even when they do get nerfed. But you need to watch out for what happened initially with this player at the start when I used that Cloak of Jet to make my Spearmen invisible, and then the Saber Tusks engaged and rampaged, and he wasted his 2 starting Saber Tusks essentially. And that's huge, because then my 2 cannons were free to do whatever they want, and it made the fact that he paid for 2 Iron Blasters kind of useless, and it instantly put him on a huge foot backwards. So there you go. That's the Cathay versus Ogre roster. Let's have a look at some of the damage values, shall we? So, if we look at these initial Saber Tusks, you can see these 2 must have been the ones that engaged initially. Basically got no value. Because they weren't even fighting, they were trying to run through the Peasant Spearmen because obviously he didn't see them. So he just put that move order. And then they got wrecked because they don't have very good armor. Iron Blasters as well. Basically got no value. I think I got this one with a missile mirror as well right at the start of the game, so it actually couldn't really shoot anything. It got 1 shot off, killed a few peasants, well 21 peasants, and then yeah, it got wrecked by cannons and the missile mirror. This one did a bit better. It actually managed to shoot up a couple of my cannons, but yeah, eventually it died. But look at this, man. This was the initial Gorges that vanguarded and just charged straight into my forces. 1,700 value on him and 1,800 on him. Do you really think these kills are justifiable? 123 and 240. Now if we look over here, they do only have 1 Gorge room reinforcement, so I actually think that these probably... they must have been resummoned, and so the mathematics is off, but come on, man. It's just ridiculous. Even halving that, the way that he utilised them, just charging them head-on into halberds, spears and archers, it's outrageous. They stalk, they're really fast. There's no reason to not be using these like cavalry. They are essentially more expensive cavalry for ogres, but you don't need to at the moment because they're very overpowered. And the only thing you can do as other factions is to try and shoot them to death, and obviously throw some anti-large at them, but it's not going to be cost effective. Anyway, it worked out well enough in this instant. Peasant Spearmen are bosses. So the Shugengan of Yin didn't get a lot of value, but the thing is, the damage that the enemy inflicts to themselves from Missile Mirror, that's not going to show up here, and the damage that she inflicts via her summoned halberd units, that also isn't going to show up here. Not to mention she's zipping around the map. The value that she gets from making her units invisible so that one of the Peasant Spearmen can do 574 value, or maybe it was even this one with 700 value, that's not going to show. But that was all because of her. The speed debuffs that she can do so that your cavalry can catch isolated units, that's not going to show. She's really good in this matchup, trust me. This cannon got compromised pretty early on by the enemy Iron Blaster and Stonehorn. This one got a lot of value. Halberds did fine. Jade Warriors, not so much. You maybe want to cut the Jade Warriors, I'm not sure. They don't actually offer too much in this matchup. They're mostly just for holding against goblins. Obviously they can kill goblins a little bit faster than halberds can. They also have missile resisting its trappers. I don't know if they're that good. They didn't get a lot of value here. Maybe they're not. Maybe in fact, rather than getting these, it'd have been better to get a crossbow squad and another peasant spearman. Probably. Something to think about. In terms of reinforcements, Jade Lancers got a lot of kills, but obviously they were only fighting Noblars. Not a lot of value, didn't pay for themselves. However, look, it's mobility. Mobility doesn't show up here in the damage value, but they provide Cathay with the mobility it needs to contest the enemy natural objective, and I think that is really valuable in and of itself. Longmers are much the same. Longmers did pay for themselves here insofar as they basically lost no HP and still got 870 value. That's really good. Longmers and Jade Lancers, you obviously want to be tying up the enemy with your peasants first as the anvil and using these guys as the hammer in the rear. It is what it is. Even if they don't pay for themselves, if they make the ogres move out of position, you can then kill them with your cannons and your ranged troops, and insofar as they get loads of value, that value was generated by them being moved out of position by the cavalry, so the cavalry really were the cause of that value. Terracotta Sentinel did fantastic. It countered the enemy Stonehorn. I think you definitely want one of these in the back. If they choose to bring Scrag, you can summon this guy and hunt down Scrag with him. He's just really robust. A lot of HP, he's got a lot of mass, he can push through the ogres, he's fast so he can catch the enemy lords, and he's good at dealing with the big monsters. You just have to bear in mind if they have Iron Blasters and you haven't dealt with the Iron Blasters, they will shoot your Terracotta Sentinel to pieces in seconds. So will Lead Belchers, so will Man-Eaters with pistols. But Lead Belchers and Man-Eaters with pistols will get wrecked by your crossbowmen and your archers, so that's how you want to deal with that. Iron Blasters, on the other hand, get wrecked by your cannons. So you need to use your own ranged units as Cathay to deal with the Ogre ranged units, and then you can beat them with your Terracotta Sentinel. Looking at the other forces for the Ogre, he actually brought a Tyrant in his secondary army, didn't even summon him. Stonehorn did alright, didn't really pay for itself, but it was kind of on a suicide charge into my cannons. It did compromise one of the cannons, which, again, that doesn't showcase in the value. It only says 712 value, but it wiped out a cannon, which is itself worth 900, so yeah, it did fine. If he actually used his Gorges better and his Sabertusks packs, you can just imagine how this game would have gone totally different. Imagine if he combined the charge of the Stonehorn with Sabertusks that didn't walk straight into my Long Spearmen and Gorges that actually flanked. Things could have gone very badly. The Iron Guts kind of got tied up fighting the wrong things, fighting peasants. There was one squad of Iron Guts, I don't know which one it was, that actually got a good engagement on the Terracotta Sentinel in the endgame. We've seen that that was really cost effective, so if you do want to deal with Terracotta Sentinels and the Cathay is spamming too many crossbowmen for you to be able to use your Ogre range tools, then one thing you can use is the Iron Guts. Just bear in mind, obviously, if you send Iron Guts in against a Terracotta Sentinel on their own and the Cathay army has a load of ranged troops, they're just going to shoot your Iron Guts, and Iron Guts don't have... well, they've got decent armour, but crossbows will probably still do a lot of damage. Celestial crossbows will do those because they're armour piercing, and definitely the cannons will be scary, so something to consider. You might want to send some Noblars in, tie up the Cathay ranged troops. Anyway, that's it for this one, folks. That was some Cathay versus Ogre Kingdoms. Tell me what you thought in the comments down below. Join the Discord. Link is in the description. When you get in there, you can talk to me about some strategy, you can send me some replays, and you can also request which matchups you want to see me play or talk about next. That is all for today. Thank you for watching. Torpid out.